Guys, welcome to my channel CA Learners CS Study with me. So, आज के वीडियो में मैं पढ़ने वाली हूँ ऐसे 260 एंड ऐसे 265 फ्रॉम चैप्टर 7 ऑडिट. तो शुरू करते हैं, बट शुरू करने से पहले वीडियो को लाइक कर लेना एंड चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर देना एंड बेल आइकन को भी प्रेस कर देना ताकि आप ऐसे मोर वीडियोस को मिस ना कर पाए. एंड अगर आप चाहते हो कि आपके साथ आपके दोस्त भी क्लियर कर ले तो उन्हें भी शेयर कर दो यार. तो शुरू करते हैं. ऐसे 260 Significance of communication with those charged with governance. So communication from auditor is important with those charged with governance, and effective two-way communication is important in assisting. तो पहले तो ऑडिटर और डोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस का कम्युनिकेशन जो है वो इम्पॉर्टेंट है. एंड इफेक्टिव टू वे कम्युनिकेशन इज इम्पॉर्टेंट असिस्टिंग द ऑडिटर एंड दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस इन अंडरस्टैंडिंग द रिलेटेड matters related to the audit in context, and also in developing a constructive working relationship. तो इफेक्टिव टू वे कम्युनिकेशन जो है इम्पॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि वो असिस्ट करता है. इफेक्टिव टू वे कम्युनिकेशन इंपॉर्टेंट है कि वो असिस्ट करता है द ऑडिटर एंड द दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस इन अंडरस्टैंडिंग द मैटर्स रिलेटेड टू द ऑडिट इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट and in developing a constructive working relationship. And also second, the auditor in obtaining from those charged with governance information relevant to the audit, for example from those charged with governance, may assist the auditor in understanding the entity and its environment, in identifying appropriate sources of audit evidence, and in providing information about specific transactions or events. Third, those charged with governance in fulfilling their responsibilities to oversee the financial reporting process, thereby reducing the risk of material misstatement. तो effective two way communication तीन चीज़ों में assist करता है. पहले तो the auditor and those charged with governance in understanding the matters related to audit in context and developing a constructive working relationship. Then second, uh, obtaining the auditor in obtaining from those charged with governance information relevant to the auditor. For example, those charged with governance may assist the auditor in understanding the entity and its environment, may assist the auditor in understanding the entity and its environment, in identifying appropriate sources of audit evidence, and in providing information about the specific transactions or events. And then third, those charged with governance in fulfilling their responsibility to oversee the financial reporting process, thereby reducing the risk of material misstatement of the financial statement. अब दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस है वो कौन है? दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस वो है जिनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है टू ओवरसी द स्ट्रेटेजिक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फॉर ओवरसीइंग द स्ट्रेटेजिक डायरेक्शन ऑफ द एंटिटी and the obligations related to the accountability of the entity. This includes overseeing the financial reporting process for some entities. Those charged with governance may include management personnel, for example, executive members of a governance of a board of a private or public sector entity. Owner or manager. Governance structure vary by entity, reflecting influences such as different cultural and legal background, size, and ownership. Now, ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है दोस्त ऑडिटर का इन अकॉर्डेंस विद ऐसे 260. now basically what is the objective of the auditor in accordance with essay 260? तो कम्युनिकेट करना दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस से उसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ ऑडिटर इन रिलेशन टू द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑडिट एंड ऑन ओवरव्यू ऑफ द प्लान स्कोप एंड टाइमिंग. तो चार है पहले तो ऑब्जेक्टिव जो है. There are four objectives of auditor in accordance with essay 260. पहला तो है कि कम्युनिकेट करो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज ऑफ ऑडिटर इन रिलेशन टू एफएस. दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस से कम्युनिकेट करना द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द ऑडिटर इन रिलेशन टू द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑडिट एंड एन ओवरव्यू ऑफ द प्लान स्कोप एंड टाइमिंग. of the audit. फिर obtain करना those charged with governance information relevant to audit. Obtain from those charged with governance information relevant to the audit. फिर provide करना those charged with governance को with timely observations arising from the audit that are significant and relevant to the responsibility to oversee the financial reporting process, and promote करना effective two-way communication between the auditor and पहले तो हमको ऑडिटर को जो ऑब्टेन करनी है फ्रॉम दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस इंफॉर्मेशन रिलेवेंट टू ऑडिट, फिर उसके बाद है ना दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस को प्रोवाइड भी करनी है टाइमली ऑब्जर्वेशंस अराइजिंग फ्रॉम द ऑडिट दैट आर सिग्निफिकेंट एंड रिलेवेंट to their responsibility to oversee the financial reporting process. फिर प्रमोट करता है इफेक्टिव टू वे कम्युनिकेशन विद ऑडिटर एंड दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस. तो चार ऑब्जेक्टिव है कि पहले तो कम्युनिकेट करो दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस से रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द ऑडिटर इन रिलेशन टू द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑडिट एंड ओवरव्यू ऑफ द प्लान स्कोप एंड टाइमिंग ऑफ द ऑडिट. फिर ऑब्टेन करो दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस से इंफॉर्मेशन रिलेटेड टू ऑडिट. फिर उसको प्रोवाइड करो टाइमली ऑब्जर्वेशंस अराइजिंग फ्रॉम द ऑडिट that are significant relevant to the responsibility to oversee the financial reporting process, and then promote karo effective two-way communication with the auditor between the auditor and those charged with governance. Now, determining appropriate persons with whom to communicate. The auditor shall determine the appropriate person within the entity's governance structure with whom to communicate. Now, matters to be communicated by auditor. तो कौन से मैटर्स जो है ना ऑडिटर को कम्युनिकेट करने हैं, तो फॉलोइंग मैटर्स आर रिक्वायर्ड टू बी कम्युनिकेट. अब दो चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस से कौन से मैटर्स जो है ऑडिटर को कम्युनिकेट करने वो बता रखा है. तो तीन तरह के तो मैटर्स है, उसमें भी तीनों में भी सब पॉइंट्स है. तो पहले वो तीन मैटर्स की हेडिंग पढ़ते हैं, फिर उनकी सब हेडिंग पढ़ते हैं. तो ऑडिटर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्या है इन रिलेशन टू फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑडिट, then significant findings from audit, and planned scope and timing of the audit. Planned scope and timing of the audit, significant findings of the from the audit, and the auditor's responsibility in relation to the फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑडिट. तो ऑडिटर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्या है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑडिट को लेके, फिर प्लान स्कोप एंड टाइमिंग ऑफ द ऑडिट, एंड देन सिग्निफिकेंट फाइंडिंग फ्रॉम ऑडिट्स. नाउ फर्स्ट, ऑडिटर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्या है इन रिलेशन टू द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑडिट. तो ऑडिटर की क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है, फॉर्म करना, एक्सप्रेस करना ओपिनियन ऑन द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट दैट हैज बीन प्रिपेयर्ड बाय द मैनेजमेंट विद द ओवरसाइट ऑफ दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस. और ये जो ऑडिट ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट है वो रिलीव नहीं करता है मैनेजमेंट और दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस को ऑफ द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज. तो ऑडिटर की क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है, टू फॉर्म एंड एक्सप्रेस एन ओपिनियन ऑन द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑडिट that have been prepared by management with the oversight of those charged with governance. Then the audit of financial statement does not relieve management and those charged with governance of their responsibilities. Now, plan scope and timing of audit. तो ऑडिटर को कम्युनिकेट करना है विद दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस और ओवरव्यू ऑफ द प्लान स्कोप एंड टाइमिंग ऑफ द ऑडिट विच कम्युनिकेटिंग अ सिग्निफिकेंट risk identified by the auditor. Significant risk identified by the auditor. तो ऑडिटर को जो है कम्युनिकेट करना है विद दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस, प्लान स्कोप एंड टाइमिंग ऑफ ऑडिट विच इंक्लूड्स communicating about the significant risk identified by the ऑडिटर. अब सिग्निफिकेंट फाइंडिंग्स क्या है फ्रॉम द ऑडिटर. ऑडिटर को कम्युनिकेट करना है दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस से सिग्निफिकेंट डिफिकल्टीज इफ एनी एनकाउंटर्ड फ्रॉम द ऑडिट. Significant difficulties if any encountered during the audit. फिर circumstances जो affect करते हैं form and content of the auditor's report. Circumstances and that affect the form and पहले तो significant difficulties if any encountered during the audit, significant difficulties if any encountered during the audit, significant difficulties if any encountered during the audit, then circumstances that affect the form and content of the audit report if any, circumstances that affect the form and content of the audit report if any other significant matter arising during the audit that in the auditor's professional judgment are relevant to the oversight of the financial reporting process. Any other significant matters arising during the audit, any other significant matters arising during the audit that in the auditor's professional judgment are relevant to the oversight of financial reporting process, that are relevant to the oversight of financial report. Any other significant arising to the audit relevant to the audit process relevant to ठीक है, unless those charged with governance are involved in managing the entity, significant matters arising during the audit that are that were discussed or subject to correspondence with management. Significant matters arising during the audit that were discussed or subject to correspondence with management. Written representations the auditor is requesting. Written representations the auditor is requesting. Now, auditors' views about significant qualitative aspects of the accounting practices, including accounting estimates, accounting policies, and financial statement disclosure. When applicable, the auditor shall explain to those charged with governance why the auditor considers a significant accounting practice that is acceptable under the financial reporting framework, not to be most appropriate to the particular circumstances of the entity. Now, auditor's views about the significant qualitative aspects. Auditor के क्या views है about the significant qualitative aspects of the entity's accounting practices, including accounting policy, accounting estimates, and significant financial statement disclosures. When applicable, the auditor shall explain to those charged with governance why the auditor considers the significant accounting practices, that is, तो हम ये सारे पॉइंट सिग्निफिकेंट फाइंडिंग्स फ्रॉम द ऑडिट के वापस पढ़ते हैं. तो ऑडिटर का व्यू अबाउट द सिग्निफिकेंट क्वालिटेटिव एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ द एंटिटीज अकाउंटिंग प्रैक्टिसेस, including the accounting policies, accounting estimates, and the financial statement disclosure. When applicable, the auditor shall explain to those charged with governance why the auditor considers a significant accounting practices that is acceptable under the applicable financial reporting framework, not to be most appropriate to the particular circumstances of the entity. Few significant difficulties, if any, encountered during the audit, unless those charged with governance are involved in managing the entity. Significant matters arising during the audit that were discussed or subject to correspondence with management. Then written representations the auditor is requesting. Circumstances that affect the form and content of the audit report, if any. फिर any other significant matters arising during the audit during the auditor's professional judgment are relevant to the oversight of the financial reporting process. Now, communication of auditor, independence in case of listed entities. अब listed entity में auditor का independence जो है communicate करना है with those charged with governance, तो क्या communicate करेगा? A statement. Hold a second, guys. I want to drink water. Okay, let's begin. A statement that the engagement team and others in the firm, as appropriate and when applicable, network firms have complied with the relevant ethical requirements regarding independence. तो एक ऐसा statement that the engagement team and others in the firm, as appropriate, and the firm, when applicable, network forms and complied with the relevant ethical requirements regarding for all relationships and other matters between the firm, network forms, and the entity in the auditor's professional judgment may reasonably be thought to bear on independence. This shall include total fees charged during the period covered by the financial statement for audit or non-audit services provided by firm and network firm. फिर that relative safeguards that have been applied to eliminate and identify threats to independence or reduce them to acceptable low level. फिर communication process. अब communication process में ऑडिटर को कम्युनिकेट करना है फॉर्म टाइम एंड एक्सपेक्टेड जनरल कंटेंट ऑफ कम्युनिकेशंस. देन कम्युनिकेट करना है इन राइटिंग में विद दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस. कम्युनिकेटिंग इन राइटिंग विद दोस्त चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस. So, significant findings from the audit professional judgment. Oral communication would not be adequate. Written communication need not include all matters that arose during the audit during the course of the audit. The auditor shall communicate in writing with those charged with comments regarding auditor's independence when required in case of listed entities. To communicate करना those charged with governance on timely basis. अब adequacy of the communication process. The auditor shall evaluate whether the two-way communication between the auditor and those charged with had been adequate for the purpose of audit If it has not, the auditor shall evaluate the effect, if any, on the auditor's assessment of the risk of material misstatement and the ability to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, and shall take appropriate action. Now, documentation. Where matters required by SA 216 to be communicated are communicated orally, the auditor shall include them in the auditor documentation, and when and to whom they were communicated. Where matters have been communicated in writing, the auditor shall retain a copy of the communication as part of the audit documentation. तो यहाँ हमारा essay 260 जो है वो ख़त्म हो जाता है. Now we'll start with essay 265 after 2 minutes of break. तो शुरू करते हैं. अब ऑडिटर को जो है ना कम्युनिकेट करना सिग्निफिकेंट डेफिशिएंसीज इन इंटर कंट्रोल राइटिंग में टू दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस. वो क्या है, रिफ्लेक्ट करेंगे इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ दिस मैटर्स एंड असिस्ट करेंगे दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस इन फुलफिलिंग देयर ओवरसाइट रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज. नाउ द ऑडिटर इज रिक्वायर्ड to obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to audit when identifying and assessing risk of मर्डर. अब मैं ना ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है ऑडिटर का इन अकॉर्डेंस विद एसए 265. तो द ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ द ऑडिटर इज टू कम्युनिकेट अप्रोबेबिलिटी टू दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस एंड मैनेजमेंट डेफिशिएंसीज इन इंटरनल कंट्रोल. कम्युनिकेट करना है हमको दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस और मैनेजमेंट से डेफिशिएंसीज इन द इंटरनल कंट्रोल that the auditor has identified during the audit, and that in the auditor's professional judgment are of sufficient importance to merit their respective attentions. Now, what is the meaning of deficiency in internal control and significant deficiencies in internal control? So, deficiency in internal control exists in two cases: when a control design implemented and maintained to prevent, detect, and correct the misstatements in the financial statements on a timely basis is missing. ठीक है, या फिर अ कंट्रोल डिजाइन इम्प्लीमेंटेड मेंटेन टू करेक्ट प्रिवेंट डिटेक्ट करेक्ट एंड मिस स्टेटमेंट इन द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑन अ टाइमली बेसिस इज अनएबल टू सॉरी वापस पढ़ती हूँ मैं. तो अ कंट्रोल डिजाइन इम्प्लीमेंटेड एंड मेंटेन operated in such a way that it is unable to prevent, detect or correct the misstatement in the financial statement on a timely basis, या फिर एक कंट्रोल जो है डिज़ाइन इम्प्लीमेंट हुआ है ऑपरेट हुआ है इन सच अ वे टू प्रिवेंट, डिटेक्ट और करेक्ट मिस स्टेटमेंट इन द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ऑन टाइमली बेसिस, या तो मिसिंग है या फिर अनएबल टू. और सिग्निफिकेंट डेफिशिएंसी क्या होती है? डेफिशिएंसी इन इंटरनल कंट्रोल या तो एक डेफिशिएंसी या कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ डेफिशिएंसी इन द इंटरनल कंट्रोल that in the auditor's professional judgment is of sufficient importance to merit the attention of those charged with governance. या तो एक deficiency या combination of deficiency जो auditor की professional judgment में ना sufficient importance रखती है to merit the attention to those charged with governance. The significance of deficiency or a combination of deficiency in internal depends not only on whether a misstatement has actually occurred, but also on the likelihood that a अब है ना significant deficiency in internal तब भी नहीं होगी कि कोई misstatement occur हो चुका है. ये तब भी हो सकती है जब कोई chances हो, that is likelihood of a misstatement could occur and the potential magnitude of the misstatement. Significant deficiency may therefore exist even though the auditor has not identified misstatement during the audit. Significant deficiency तब भी हो सकती है जब ऑडिटर ने जो है आइडेंटिफाई नहीं किया अभी तक कोई misstatement during the audit. Now, examples of matters that auditor may consider determining whether deficiency or a combination of deficiency, that is significant deficiency, है. तो likelihood deficiency leading to material misstatement in the financial statement, likelihood of deficiency leading to material misstatements in the financial statements in the future. तो likelihood of the deficiency leading to material misstatement in the financial statement, susceptibility to loss or fraud of the related asset or liability, लॉस और फ्रॉड की एसेट या लाइबिलिटी को लेकर लॉस या फ्रॉड की चांसेस, या फिर सब्जेक्टिविटी इन कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी ऑफ डिटरमाइनिंग एस्टिमेटेड अमाउंट्स सच एज फेयर वैल्यू अकाउंटिंग एस्टिमेट्स, या फिर फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट अमाउंट्स एक्सपोज टू दी डेफिशिएंसीज, या फिर वॉल्यूम ऑफ एक्टिविटी दैट हैज occurred or could occur in the account balance or class of transaction exposed to the deficiency or deficiencies. तो या तो likelihood of deficiencies leading to material misstatement in the financial statements in the future, susceptibility of a loss or fraud related to asset or liability, subjectivity and complexity of determining estimated amounts such as fair value accounting estimates, subjectivity and complexity of determining estimated amounts such as fair value accounting estimates, financial statement amounts exposed to the deficiencies, volume activity that has occurred or could occur in the account balance or class of transactions exposed to the deficiency or deficiencies, likelihood of the deficiencies leading to the material misstatement in the financial statement in the future, susceptibility to the loss or fraud of the related asset or liability, subjectivity and complexity of determining estimated amounts such as the fair value accounting estimates, subjectivity and complexity of determining estimated amounts such as the fair value of accounting estimates, financial statement amounts exposed to the deficiencies, the volume of activity that has occurred or could occur in the account balance or class of transactions exposed to the deficiency or deficiencies, volume of activity that has occurred or could occur in the account balance or class of transactions exposed to the deficiency or deficiencies, importance of the controls in the to the financial reporting process, for example general monitoring controls such as oversight of management, controls over the prevention and detection of fraud, controls over the selection and application of significant accounting policies, control over the significant transactions with related parties, control over significant transactions outside the entity's normal course of business, controls over the period and financial reporting process, such as controls over the non-recurring journal entries, cause and frequency of the exceptions detected as a result of the deficiencies in the control, interaction of the deficiency with other significant with other deficiencies in internal control. अब example of indicators of significant deficiencies in internal control. Indications that significant transactions in which event is financial interested in identification of management, management failure to implement, absence of a risk assessment process, evidence of an ineffective entity, evidence of ineffective response, misstatements detected. तो यहाँ जो है हमारा ऐसे 265 भी कंप्लीट होता है. तो मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वीडियो में विद नेक्स्ट ऐसे. तो तब तक के लिए चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर लेना एंड बेल आइकन को प्रेस कर लेना ताकि आप नेक्स्ट वीडियो नेक्स्ट स्टैंडर्ड या कुछ भी टॉपिक मिस ना करो, बिकॉज एग्ज़ाम्स बहुत पास में है सितंबर वाले. तो फास्ट जल्दी जल्दी रिवाइज करो, सब कंप्लीट करो. बाय बाय, थैंक यू.